To the town of our free rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. The stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. It was early in the morning when he rode into the town. He came riding from the south side, slowly looking all around. He's an outlaw, loose and running, came the whisper from each lip. And he's here to do some business with a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. In this town there lived an outlaw by the name of Texas Red. Many men had tried to take him, and that many men were dead. He was vicious and a killer, though a youth of 24, and the notches on his pistol numbered 1 and 19 more, 1 and 19 more. Now the stranger started talking, made it plain to folks around. Was in Arizona Ranger, wouldn't be too long in town. He came here to take an outlaw back alive or maybe dead. And he said it didn't matter, he was after Texas Red, after Texas Red. Wasn't long before the story was relayed to Texas Red. But the outlaw didn't worry, men that tried before were dead. 20 men had tried to take him, 20 men had made a slip. 21 would be the ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. The morning passed so quickly, it was time for them to meet. It was 20 past 11 when they walked out in the street. Folks were watching from the windows, everybody held their breath. They knew this handsome ranger was about to meet his death, about to meet his death. There was 40 feet between them when they stopped to make their play. And the swiftness of the ranger is still talked about today. Texas Red had not cleared leather for a bullet fairly ripped. And the ranger's aim was deadly with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. It was over in a moment and the folks had gathered round. There before them lay the body of the outlaw on the ground. Oh, he might have went on living, but he made one fatal slip when he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. Big iron, big iron, when he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip.
Shut your ass! You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you. Now get up!
Good evening, friends. It's Friday, which means it's time once again for another exciting and informative episode of Hobbservations on Roads to Liberty. Think about heading on over to our website after this episode, roads2liberty.com. Pick yourself up some freedom swag. Show your support so we can continue to do fun and interesting things like this. We appreciate you. We know that you could be doing a lot of things on a Friday evening, but you're here with us. And for that, I just want to say thank you. Tonight, we are doing SHOT Show Roundup. with a couple of guys who were actually there doing the thing. There were several trends that I noticed this year in the coverage that I watched from afar about SHOTshow, so I decided I would reach out to two people that I've interviewed before who exemplified pretty much all of the trends that I saw. There were three fairly new trends this year and the continuation of one that I noticed about 2 or 3 years ago. So, to talk about all of the new and interesting things in the gun world tonight, I am joined by Steve, the man behind MadPig Customs, and Dana, the guy behind Templar Precision, out there doing the Lord's work in the gunosphere. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm just enjoying my Friday night. How about you guys?
I hope you are. Steve?
That's a little past my bedtime, but
Well,
I'd stay up
hopefully,
this
hopefully
late.
it's worth it. Hopefully it's worth it. So like I said, I noticed a continuation of one trend that I noticed about 3 years ago, and three brand new trends this year, or more or less brand new trends this year. The new trends that I noticed this year is we are seeing the surge in popularity of the lever action rifle. That's trend number one. The second trend that I'm noticing is an interest in retro firearms, and also an interest in what I haven't seen anybody really describe it yet, so I'm going to call it post-retro firearms. These are older designs that have been given a brand new touch. Talking about things like the Beretta really exemplified this. They had like the 80X Cheetah. They had their brand new 3032 Tomcat and their little 21A, the 22 caliber, and they had a facelift for their 92 series. These are all very old models given brand new facelifts for things like optics, threaded barrels for suppressors and compensators and things like that. And then the third trend that I noticed this year was a bit of an explosion, or maybe a renaissance, to what I'm calling the anti-AR. These are tactical rifles in intermediate calibers that are not AR-15s. People seem to be really jumping in, just looking for something different. I think AR fatigue has finally set in. I'm not the only person in the world who's just sick and tired of seeing them everywhere, and people are looking for other options to fill the same niche. And the continuation of a trend that I noticed a few years ago is 5.7 is hot this year. Lots of people coming out with new stuff in the 5.7 by 28 FN. So we're going to jump in because Steve's picture is closest to me here on the screen. We're just going to jump over to him real quick, and we'll talk about the surge in lever actions, and also we'll dive a little bit into the retro, because there's almost nothing more retro than a lever action rifle. So Steve, tell us a little bit about what you saw and why you think the interest is so high in your sphere of influence.
Well, I think with what you talked about just now, all of those three trends are connected. AR fatigue is a real thing. Um, People like things that are different at this point. When I think it's great that PSA can, flood the market with, low cost ARs. And because of that, people have a lot of them. And so now people are looking to branch into different things. As to the lever gun world, I don't know. Everybody told me this was a trend and this wave was going to crest like 3 years ago, and I kind of thought it might as well, and it really didn't. So, I'm pretty happy about that because that's my business. But I will say that there were some things that we were surprised about. There's some things that are still not out yet that I think are going to surprise some people, and some things that won't. Um, the market is the demand is just so high, right? And I think that's what these manufacturers saw. Um, you know, Henry can't fill all their orders. Marlin can't fill all their orders. Even Rossi can't fill all their orders. And the market being what it is, somebody's going to step in and fill those orders. And I think that's what we saw. And I think there were two different approaches to that from what we saw at SHOTshow. Smith and Wesson went and took different aspects of a lot of things that currently exist and kind of made it their own, which I think is pretty cool. And then Arrow Precision and Stag, which I mean, for my purposes, they're the same gun because they're the same overall company. They stepped in and said, "Well, we're gonna make a straight up Marlin 1895 clone, an unabashed clone," and that's exactly what it is. It is a straight up copy, which, and then they started to put some of their own their own spin on it for certain things, like a monolithic handguard and integral top rail. That hasn't been done before. Um, so I think that there is still a lot of room in that market because people still can't find guns at their local gun store. Certainly, they can't find the ones they really want. And we'll see who else pops up.
Awesome. Okay, we'll move over onto the other trend that I noticed in the anti-AR, as I like to call it. Dana works for, or he is, Templar Precision. He's out there keeping the ACR alive and well. You're basically doing entire rifles now, aren't you?
I mean, yes and no. It's piece by piece because parts runs are astronomical. A single part could cost me $5,000 to $10,000 to tool it for. Then customers are paying like $40-$50 for it or whatever. So it's like it's one of those things. It's like I'm pretty much getting there slowly but surely. And we can get onto that stuff whenever. But I've got a few samples I can show out and all that jazz too.
Awesome. So. Yeah, the last time we talked, you had a lot to say about where the ACR is going, and since then I've been following your Instagram page pretty closely because the stuff that you're managing to do over there to something that a lot of people are like, oh, the ACR is a dead platform, Remington fucked it up, blah blah blah. I assure you, it is quite not dead, and you are the one who is keeping it alive, and salute to you for that. But the things that you've managed to do since the last time that we've talked have been phenomenal. Like, to say that I'm, me being a CNC machinist myself and seeing what you've been able to accomplish, to say that I'm jealous would be the understatement of the year. You have put in the work, and seeing your various different modifications and the scythe come to life has been like, much love to you for that. So, judging by, I don't want to be talking about competition and everything like that, but we saw PSA came out with, they had several new models of the Jackal. They had the VOOK or the Volk or whatever it is, that AK-12 looking thing. PWS came out with something called the UXR. You have all of these guns that fill into that same niche. What was the interest that you saw towards what you're doing, and how vibrant, how good was it this year?
I mean, honestly, all those companies, they came out spitting fire. I mean, and I don't even view it as competition because honestly, I don't really care. The fact is, if you have a different product that somebody wants, that's fine. I'm just going to stick with my niche. But honestly, like the stuff that I saw, and just as a disclaimer real quick, I caught the SHOTshow flu at SHOTshow, probably on the plane to SHOTshow. So I was out the entire Wednesday. Tuesday I was already meh, and I left out Thursday night. So I didn't have a lot of time to actually go through and look at some stuff. But honestly, I did see the PWS. I didn't get to handle it, but I mean, it looked great. They had the way that they came out with the multi-caliber lower, that was a setup I wanted to do. But last time we talked, I was nowhere near that kind of a development. I'm still not even at that point. But that was something I wanted to integrate, and they totally knocked it out of the park. And I think they did a great job. And I handled the Jackal a few times at the last SHOTshow. I think they had a prototype one over at AAC. And if not, they had one over at the NRA show. And I messed with it a little bit, and it was a pretty cool setup. It's definitely more evolved now, especially since it's actually released now. I don't know if it was released back then or not. I don't really keep too much tabs on it, but I do kind of follow it loosely. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think honestly, these other companies are coming out with some really, really good setups that are just honestly, for the price and for what they're offering, they're really, really good options.
All right, great. You said you had a couple of samples behind you. You want to maybe reach back there and show us some of the stuff that you're working on right now?
Yeah, I can. Half of these are the ones actually from the show that I had on display. Let me not knock one over. We'll start with. Yep, there goes 2 of them. Keep in mind, the Lynx is not a really good stand for a thing. But this is one of the sites. This is one of the Shadow Company ones. This one has my upper, my lower. Still running a factory ACR stock until I can get the 6-digit price tag for the molds. So that'll be a minute. Yeah, probably from my understanding, it costs at least half of what the machine behind me did for a mold set. I don't know because I haven't priced it out, but you know. But this one's my personal. It's running the modified AAC N6 suppressor. It's got the new baffle stack on it, and the new removable front and rear caps. This one's about 98% my stuff, and everything on it's been modified. It's got the new G3 trunnion system on it, which is non-QD. It's actually all bolted together, so it doesn't rattle at all. That was a big thing I was trying to get to, is no rattle while keeping a lot of the ability to actually take it apart without a hammer type deal. But yeah, this is one of the size. It has the I can't even talk tonight. It's got the Shadow Company upper, which is a little bit lighter than the factory ACR upper. It's got M-LOK slots up on the front. And then these have options for different packages where you can put in, a factory ACR trunnion, which I don't manufacture. There's a patent directly on that. So you will not see me manufacture that. So for anybody watching, there is not going to be a QD trunnion system based on the ACR one in my setups because there is a patent. With that being said, they do fit in the chassis. So that's pretty cool. So if you wanted one and you had a old trunnion laying around or whatever, or you find one on Gunbroker, you can swap one right in, and then you can put on the factory handguard, the factory barrel systems into it. The Gen 2 systems are more like the Remington Defense ACRs. They have the removable handguards like the normal ACRs do, and then they have a non-QD barrel nut setup, which it says non-QD, but realistically, if you've got like 1 minute and a wrench, you can take it apart and swap in a different barrel in the field. So you don't really lose it. You get the benefit of you can actually lock it up a lot tighter, which means your barrel won't come loose after a few thousand rounds, yada, yada, yada. So, and then the Gen 3s are integrated handguard and trunnion. Actually, I'll just pull one out right here. So this is the factory trunnion. See if I can get a good picture of it for everybody.
Yep.
This is the Gen 2. Pretty much, I mean, you look at them, they're really, really similar. All the bolt patterns identical. And then here's the factory trunnion versus one of the Gen 3s. And I can get really close on that. And the big difference is notice there's 3 holes here. The front one and the back one, depending on which angle you're at, I guess would be this side, is the one that mounts the handguard. The other side's to the lower. This one doesn't have that at all, because the handguard will actually bolt into using these 3 little locking lugs. That'll be a really good option for like weight reduction. Going from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 trunnions, you're looking at like 4 ounces of weight loss. Going from the Gen 2 to the Gen 3 system, you're looking at an additional 4 ounces or so. So just swapping that trunnion, you're looking at almost 8 ounces difference between, an ACR and a Gen 3. So that's kind of why I went with that kind of a setup.
And ounces are pounds. Pounds are pain, as the old saying goes.
Well, especially when they're all in the front on a front heavy rifle to begin with. So
True that. So let's bounce back over to Steve real quick, and we'll go into another one of the trends that I really noticed, and again comes to us mostly courtesy of the PSA booth. Their Harrington and Richardson line is kicking out retro guns. Everybody seems to be wanting retro guns lately. In addition to lever action stuff, retro is hot. So what? And it is like retro AR stuff, more or less, but it's still retro stuff. So where do you think that this trend came from? Because it kind of came out of nowhere. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about like Blood Diamond and Gordy Carr and all these things, but the retro thing just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm wondering where it came from. So what's your opinion on that?
I mean, well, first of all, I just want to say I really love what you do over at Templar, by the way. I'm a
Oh, I
big fan.
appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I mean it, dude. I love like, AR-18 pattern rifles. I have all sorts of weird shit that I prefer that's not ARs, like
Oh,
but I was hoping Beretta would do one of these, but they didn't do that yet. So
Maybe maybe
it's pretty
next
hot. I'm not
year.
gonna lie.
Maybe next year if the
maybe.
retro bug keeps going.
Yeah. So and then as far as like the to your question about retro stuff, I don't know, man. Like I remember when I was in college in like the early 2000s, retro stuff was just starting to pick up on like AR15.com, and you know, back then there wasn't a huge market for it. It started to pick up, and then I kind of fell off of it for a while, and then I started looking at it again a few years ago, and I couldn't believe how big things were, and I felt how stupid I was for selling certain things that are now worth retarded amounts of money.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, right. I mean, that's always the way, Back then you couldn't give it away, and now it's worth like, stupid money. But
Emags.
yeah, Emax.
I had
Um,
I had a pile before I left the army of Knights Armament M5 quad rails for the M16A2 that
oh
were
yeah,
just laying
Yep.
around. Somebody asked me if I
oh
wanted
yeah,
to take them home, and I'm just like, nah, what am I going to do with that crap?
yeah.
So dumb.
Uh,
So dumb.
Somebody found them in a dumpster 10 minutes later.
Probably.
I mean, you're not lying, dude. Like, I'm going on 18 and a half years in the army, and the stuff you find is just ridiculous. I mean,
Oh
that's
man.
tightened up a lot in
Yeah.
the past few years. I think we have systems to track things now, make stuff not walk away, but well, not as easily at least. But I don't know. I think people like things that they can kind of research and stuff. And with your generic like ARs and things like that, I, it just kind of is what it is.
Hmm.
It's literally the sum of its parts. And yeah, it's cool, and you can build it for a purpose, and that's great. But I think people like being able to actually like build something that they're able to have some like a story behind. They're able to look into it. I know a lot of guys that are into the clone stuff that are just they love chasing the parts, you know? Um, and it's funny because I have I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but I have a stupid rare upper. Um, but as far as I know, this is one of two that exist.
Wow.
Um, and it's yeah. So the barrel markings, which you can't really see, are RNC, and the only reference I ever found to it was in Book of the Black Rifle 2. And basically, what it is when the M16 first came out, before they had chrome lined barrels and bores, they took some of the original batch, sent them to Rock Island Arsenal, and the RNC ones got a chrome lined bore, and they only did a very small number of them, and then they were. I don't even know that they were even really phased into service. Because the A1 came along, and at that point they were doing everything. There was no need to recondition them. Well, I came across that a few years ago, unfired, because it was on a 1033 gun that a local police department sold all the uppers off, which you can't do, but they did. And I got that thing for $200, still with the
Wow.
barrel wick in it. Um, and there's no pictures of any of them except for mine, even in Book of the Black Rifle too. So I don't know. I like interesting, rare stuff like that. That's kind of cool. Um, but the funny thing is, for something so rare, like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who runs his name is Brent Sauer. He runs like the Colt resource page,
Hmm.
and I'm like, what's something like this worth? It's probably not worth as much as one might think it is because no one really wants it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a mod 1 or mod 0 where there's like some broad like demand for it and broad interest. So I think people seem to like stuff that they can kind of put a I don't know if the right way to say it, like they can put a face to a name, like the Gothic Serpent stuff, the Gary Gordon carbines and things like that. The Blood Diamond ones, like
Yeah.
from a movie. Hey,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not retro. It's not really a clone. That's from a movie. It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
So I don't know. I think that plays into it too.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about some guys like chasing the parts, and I think that's definitely got to have something to do with it. And on one hand, when you got companies like H&R under PSA that are now going to be making all of these more or less clone correct parts,
Yeah.
very, very minute differences between originals and what they're making. And I got to imagine that spinning up forging material to do just like minute little details has got to have been just an incredible expense. I mean, just ridiculous, but the market must be there if they're going to take that kind of a risk. But on the one hand, you're going to have guys who have been chasing clone correct parts that are going to be satiated by this. Like, okay, I can get a Harrington and Richardson A1 carry handle upper with no forward assist and build the rifle that I've had in my head for years, blah, blah, blah. And then you're also going to have the other end of the spectrum where you're going to have guys who want the clone correct parts, like the original parts. They're going to be
I
chasing
like how
that
you called it
dragon.
the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's quite autistic getting down into where some of these guys will be going to get like I don't want an H&R, a brand new H&R, clone correct part. I want the actual 1960 whatever Colt 601 blah blah blah, and they'll go to the ends of the earth in order to get it. And that, that's just going to be driving the market forward.
And I think those guys are collectors though, right? Like I
Yeah,
think that's different, you know?
yeah,
Like growing up, my dad collected like militaria. I mean, he still does, but you know, that kind of stuff. He was a collector, not a shooter. And like the kind of things that he would seek out, it wasn't to just make a clone of something. He was like making something. You know what I mean? Like it added value to it. The H&R stuff is cool, but it's not going to have the same value as an original
right.
601 upper. You know what I mean? And so I think there's two different markets you're trying to satisfy there. There's the
Yeah,
guys who want to collect it, who can afford it, because that's a big part of it, and the guys who want something that they probably can't afford or the originality does not matter to them. And that's okay. And I
yeah,
think that's a big distinction, you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
with
completely agree with that.
yeah, and with new parts that are good enough to satisfy the shooter rather than the collector, it also opens up the opportunity for those people who are looking for that provenance. It opens the market up for them to maybe get the things that they desire for the reasons that they desire. Whereas the guy who is looking to put together, like, a Gordy Car 15 or a Blood Diamond Car 15 just for the sake of having it, he's not looking for like the actual honest to God original parts. He's looking for something that just looks the part. Now he's got an avenue to get what he wants without stepping on the foot of the guy who wants it for its provenance.
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing new. Look at the AK market. I mean, hell, you could lump PSA in with that, right?
Yep.
PSA makes an AK 106 clone. Has that detracted from the value of a real AK 106?
Nope.
No,
Nope.
it has
And
not, you
and
know?
this
But it
this
just
right
means
here
guys
is
that don't give a shit can buy one.
exactly right. And this right here is exactly, not to get off onto a tangent, but there are people that are in our space, the gun collecting world space or the gun manufacturing world space or whatever. There are people who have invested literal millions of dollars in machine guns who fight against the repeal of the NFA because they think that it's going to hurt the value of their collection, a collection that they probably have no intent on ever capitalizing on in the first place. But they think that if the NFA were repealed tomorrow and auto ordnance spun up brand new production of 1928 A1 Thompson submachine guns, then their original 1928 submachine gun is going to be worth $1,500. And that's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna give my opinion on that because I live in Connecticut. I grew up in the town where auto ordnance was. I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But in Southern Connecticut, there is a shit ton of huge machine gun collections, and I've been privileged enough to see some of them. They're all private, you know. And then those guys have money that you wouldn't believe.
Mhm.
And to a T, every single one of them that I've met, who are people that I would assume would be just like you described, they'd have the NFA repealed tomorrow. Because the
Mhm.
guys who can afford having those kind of high dollar investments, and again, I'm painting with a broad brush. I get that. They invest their money in other places besides machine guns.
Yeah.
Um, like it's like we always. When I used to work in emergency management. One of the things we used to say is like people that own beach houses generally, when a storm comes, if you have a beach house, you probably have another house too, and you're gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they don't make stupid financial decisions to be able to afford those kinds of things. Um, I think there's a small minority of the, like, uh, piss people off, like the Wayne LaPierre types who, like, will sell out their mother to like get what they want. I think they're in a very small minority, maybe vocal in certain spaces, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's as big as people think.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is a lot of those guys that I'm talking about, the gun collector guys that fight against the repeal of the NFA.
Yeah,
They may be small in number, but they are very, very vocal.
yeah,
I've seen shit on some message boards and in newspaper, or not newspaper, shit, magazine articles and things like that. That like, oh, we shouldn't repeal the NFA because the collectors will be pissed. Like, go fuck yourself, man. Just piss right off. Piss
Well,
off
keep
the
in mind, those guys are also the guys who can speak the loudest because they have the most money to throw around too. They
Yeah.
can buy out an
No.
entire chapter of Recoil magazine and say no. I
Yeah.
look at Recoil magazine and said I can't afford that stuff.
you're not wrong.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about some industry trends, and the other thing that I noticed, like I said, was the continuation of one that I noticed about like 3 years ago, I'd say, was kind of a resurgence in the interest in the 5.7 cartridge, and this year it seems to have really come into its own. I know Smith and Wesson came out with their tempo barrel system on their 5.7. Ruger last year had their 5.7. PSA's got the Rock. PSA has that Rock PDW that kind of set the internet on fire. T-Sauce out of Turkey is coming out with a 5.7 pistol. So there's a lot of 5.7 love going on around, at least as far as like the internet gun reporting that I saw. Did you guys see or hear a lot of that on the floor while you were down there? We'll go to Dana first.
I mean, I wasn't on the floor a super whole lot, mostly running from meeting to meeting and basically trying to figure out where booths were because you know how big it is. But
No, I don't. I've never been there.
that was kind of a thing. You're not missing anything.
Shot AIDS.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, you are missing the thing. You're missing the SHOTshow virus.
Yeah, shot AIDS.
Rude.
But yeah, exactly. I'm still recovering. But anyway, the big thing that and I didn't see a whole lot of 5.7 stuff because I really wasn't looking for it. But what I was looking for was like the MP7 style things, and there was a lot of MP7 style clones over there. Not to mention the Grandmaster himself, Tommy. He had his, and I mean that thing's phenomenal. But overall, that was kind of the thing I was more interested in. It was seeing like the MP7 style clones over the actual 5.7 cartridge itself. So that was kind of my take on it. I actually didn't even get to see the what was it, the PSA on the Rock. I wasn't cool enough to make it to their booth.
And Tom
Yeah,
Bostic, if you're watching, Senpai notice me. I'd love to interview you someday. Anyways, Steve, what do you have to say about that?
Honestly, it was kind of the same for me. I mean, I did go over to the B&T booth to check out Tommy's his MP7 clone because I mean that's cool. I mean,
Oh, that's fire.
I mean, I have one of his TG36s, and it's just fucking cool, right? Like, it scratches my like '90s kid video game itch, and I didn't get a chance to go to the PSA booth. I walked by it so many times, but like Dana said, when you're at SHOT Show, for me, like it's just I'm there for business, and like it's just meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting.
Oh yeah.
And you don't even get to see half the cool stuff you want to go see, right? Like,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like for anybody who's not been there, and this is the reality. Think of the biggest department store you've ever been to. Now make it 4 floors, and that's like what it is. because you've got the
Yeah.
basement floor, which is probably 2 department stores, and then you've got the main floor, which is probably 1 1/4, and then you've got the upstairs floors, and then the side rooms, which are all entire giant rooms full of stuff.
Yeah.
In 2
I sent. I
convention
sent.
centers now. You know,
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
I didn't even
we
list off Caesar's Emporium, which is
yeah,
huge. That's probably another 2 Walmarts. If
we
we're
were
allowed to
doing
use the word
about a
name.
yeah, my guy Liv and I
Americans
we're
will
doing
use
about
anything with
11
metric
miles a
system.
day, like just going back and forth. You know, you
Yeah.
don't realize how long it takes until you have one meeting in Caesars and then another one on the wrong side of the Venetian.
Oh,
And you're
dude, that
like,
was me.
"Damn it."
I had one of my customers who was awesome enough to guide me through, and I was like, "Hey, where's this booth at? I need to know. I've got 2 hours. I'm leaving on a plane tonight, and I have 2 hours to make 10 meetings. You know, at least say hi. I'm Dana. I talked to you
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
internet. Have a nice day." And fortunately, he was awesome, and he got me through all of them. But it was run, and it was like running to your plane at an airport on the other terminal.
So I sent
mean-
Ben a meme that I made about the 57/MP7 love, and maybe he'll throw it up here real quick.
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, is the PS90 even around anymore? I think it's
It
gone,
is.
right?
No, they're still making it. They just don't do it in very many.
They are?
They don't do it in numbers, as far as I know. Yeah, it's just one of those limited, like all things FN. They make something really cool, and then they don't support it at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you want to buy a barrel? Maybe CMMG will do a run of 100 this year, and they'll cost $450. It's like, come on, man. And then you need to send it off to a specialist gunsmith in order to, unbraze it from the aluminum receiver and then pound it out and get it installed correctly. It's like you guys shoot yourself in the foot. Same thing with the SCAR. They finally release the SCAR light pistol this year, and everybody's like, it's not in 300 blackout. It's got a 7.5-inch barrel. It has no, it's got a Picatinny rail on the back, but you guys didn't include any kind of brace with it. Who the fuck is this for? About 15 years late. She's 7.5-inch barreled
man.
5.56. Are you smoking crack?
Yeah.
I wonder
And-
why they didn't drop the 300. I mean, I have my assumptions, but I didn't get to talk to them either. Well,
You don't have a
would assume
.gov
it's
email
reliability issues. That too. I used to.
Yeah, I think the only SCAR thing they came out with, didn't they come out with like some kind of new variant of like the 20S or something?
They did last year. They came
Yeah,
out
you
with
Google search that
the yeah, they did the 20S last year in 6.5 Creedmoor, and it was just an absolute dumpster fire because they had pressure problems. So it's like,
My exposure to the SCARs, I'm really good friends with the guys from Kinetic Development Group because they're here locally in Connecticut. So that's about the extent of my knowledge of SCAR stuff.
I've shot one.
I haven't. Oh, well, I did one. I did it once.
I shot one out to about 700 meters, and I couldn't hit 800 because the trigger, once you started to pull, it would pull the whole entire rifle down, and it was just atrocious. They ended up, my brother got a Geissele put into it right after the range trip, but I never went back with it, so I never got to correct it.
Yeah. I shot mine into a clearing barrel for test firing on full auto. That's it.
Beat me. I've never shot one in auto.
I did one mag dump in Iraq into a mud hut, and that was the extent of my experience with a SCAR. Although my brother did buy a 17 a while back, and I'm waiting to let me tinker with it. But yeah, enough FN hate right now. They're my favorite.
I like the machine guns.
Hey, they got some good stuff. I don't talk smack about them, surprisingly. Maybe a little.
I am an FN enjoyer as well. I used to have the FNX 45 Tactical. That was my favorite pistol. And then when they dropped to the 5.45, I had to jump on that right away. So pretty cool. I like it. It runs my Hornady critical duty just fine, so that's good enough for me. And yes, their machine guns are phenomenal. The only serial number that I remember of any weapon issued to me in the Army was the 240 Bravo I carried on my first deployment, uniform 91385. It's probably still floating around Fort Stewart, Georgia. It probably still has the smoothest action of any 240 on planet Earth because I put so much elbow grease into Molly D'ing the inside of that receiver. Whoever has it, you're welcome.
I love 240s, I really do, and but I've had really good luck with the 249, and I love the 249, and I got one of those too because that was on my list. But
Oh,
the the when I was a young specialist, I was at JRTC and I got a brand new 240, like out of the box from FN because we just stood up the brigade.
Yep.
And they were like, "Hey Ty, here you go," and I was like, "All right, cool." 240 like any other 240, and the thing would not cycle at all. They riveted the receiver together too tight.
Uh-oh.
And it's the Army. So what does Sergeant tell Specialist Ty? He's like, just keep racking it, dude. You'll get there. It'll loosen it up. Oh man, I got real strong for about 3 days until I was like, dude, this is not good. This ain't happening. All right.
Yeah.
Like, it's not working. So we ended up sending it and coding it out. But that was a really shitty 3 days of me sitting in my turret going like this in every spare minute I had, just trying to get it to loosen up.
No, throw some sand in it. Throw some
I've
sand in
not
it.
had a lot of experience with those.
Yeah, you've
I
been
saw
putting
240 when I was in the Army.
you've been putting dimples on barrels though, haven't you?
Ooh, yeah, I actually just did a 240 barrel. It was a nightmare and a half because they're like 21 and a half inches long plus flash hider and all the accessories and Giphy and stuff. And my little Tormach, which is the machine I use for that, is it's got like 12, 14 inches of X travel. So it's like I gotta put it in this way and then flip it around backwards and do the other half of it and match them together. Like, whatever. Next time I'm doing this on the Doosan. But yeah, I did just dimple that one. And I was gonna say I've been doing saw barrels like a champ, but I'm a former saw gunner, so got to give some love there.
I do.
That was my baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
I too carried the saw on my second deployment, and then they had to go and promote me, and it wouldn't be proper for an NCO to carry a saw anymore. It's like
Hey,
It's true. I'm a master sergeant now. I don't get to shoot anything fun. I'm the state marksmanship NCO for the state of Connecticut. I don't get to do shit that's fun anymore.
I got out as an E4 because you know what? I just couldn't handle it. I was 8 years in, and I was like, you know what? It's only getting downhill from here, guys.
Yep. Yeah, that was what broke me was getting to NCO status and not being able to do any of the fun shit anymore because you ought to be proper. But anyways, we're kind of getting off into tangent land here, like reminiscing, telling war stories and shit. But anyways, kind of moving back over into SHOT. I know you guys said that you were really busy with your meetings and trying to get from place to place, and I laid out a couple.
Not so hoity-toity, but it's just like it's not the intent. Like
no.
Yeah.
If that's what it came off as, I apologize. That's not my intent.
No, I think that's how I come up.
Oh no.
Same.
No, don't worry about it. But so I laid out the trend lines that I saw from the coverage that I managed to see out here in internet land. Is there anything that you guys noticed or not even noticed, but did you hear anybody talking about anything that maybe I would have missed, or maybe something that's coming down the pipe from any of the big names or small names that you think is going to make a splash either this year in this, I guess you call it like the fiscal year running from SHOT 24 to SHOT 25, or something that's going to make a big splash at SHOT 25?
I've got one thing that I'll bring up, and I think it's more of a trend as opposed to something specific. So, in regards to the lever gun stuff, all the companies I talk to, one of the primary drivers that is finally being acknowledged is the aftermarket is driving the primary market, right? So when you see Smith & Wesson coming out with the 1854, there are certain things on that are proprietary, but they also made it so it accepts Marlin 1894 furniture, right? So all your aftermarket handguards, your optic rails, your stocks, those are all drop-in fit, right? There's a couple other things that, when I get them, I'll be able to confirm what works and what doesn't. But, that's something that's pretty cool to see that, especially a company like Smith& and Wesson acknowledged that, like, yeah, this is something that we should be doing instead of making everything proprietary, right? And then you see the same thing with, excuse me, Aero Precision and, Stag Arms. Like, they're embracing the aftermarket to let it drive their decision making on how they're producing factory rifles. And I think that's just a really cool thing to see companies kind of coming around to that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that is cool. So one thing that we kind of talked about in the pre-show, Steve, was the third trend line, or not the third trend line, but kind of the second half of the retro trend line that I saw while we were talking about, was what I call the post-retro, where it's older designs that are getting facelifts or accoutrements for, or accommodations for brand new accoutrements. Things like the Beretta 92 series, the 32 series, the stuff like that, where you got these like really old, really classic designs that can now mount red dot optics, have threaded barrels for suppressors and compensators. The one that you and I were kind of talking about a little bit that really kind of tickled me and kind of like frustrated you was the Henry Supreme, the lever action AR mag compatible wood furniture 223 or 300 blackout rifle. Why don't you tell us what you know about that?
Sure. And so, like, and for clarity, when he says it frustrates me, I wanted to hate that gun. And I told Dennis this because those guys are friends of ours too. And like, they asked me about it when we saw him. We saw him at one of the bars, and they were like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "I really, really wanted to hate it, but I think they executed it really well." You know, it's a really interesting design. There are certain aspects of it that uh, allow some compatibility with other stuff. I can't quite get into the details on, but I think once they actually do start talking about some of those things, they're going to be really cool that people are going to like. Um, you know, the I just hope that they will be able to manufacture enough of them for people to get them that want them, right? Because that's really been the biggest problem with a lot of these companies is that they come out with something really cool, but they can't make enough to satisfy the demand, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. When it comes to lever guns, it's because they're really, really expensive to make, and they're very difficult to make, especially traditional ones. I mean, you want to talk about forging? My God, like, um, so I think that's going to be something that they'll have to contend with, and I'm curious how they're going to handle that. I hope they handle it well. You know, the the first thing they asked me after, like, what do you think? They're like, so when are you gonna SPR one and put a can on it? And I was like, as soon as you send me one, because that sounds actually really fun. So let's do that in 300 blackout. We'll do something stupid. It'll be great. Put dicks on it or something. But one of the so I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really well designed. It was extremely smooth. It was extremely fast. Like, again, for a lever gun, right? But to kind of switch gears to something else that I heard about that I didn't actually see at SHOTshow, but wish I did, that falls into this was who was it, like Pindad, I think? They're the Indonesian company that's bringing in FNCs, which
And
I am so goddamn
BM59s.
excited about.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think they're doing the Beretta PM12 clones too.
Beretta
I'm
PM12s,
so excited about that.
Beretta BM59s, and
Yes,
FNCs. Those, yes, I did see, like, I saw a Forgotten Weapons reel on it. Like a short little
that's
30
how I
second.
found out about it. And
Yeah.
I was at SHOT Show. I was so pissed.
Yeah, like a little 30-second blurb talking about the FNC is coming into the United States, and since it's being made in Indonesia, you could probably be able to buy one and without having to take a second mortgage out on your house.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see, but I imagine that it's probably going to be something a similar setup to like the Rock Island guns, where it's made on real military contract tooling and machinery.
Yeah.
And it's made in a place like the Philippines or Indonesia, so your labor costs are going to be really low, and the quality is probably going to be not like brand new, modern European arms conglomerate standards, but it's going to be good enough for a shooter. Just like the Rock Island guns.
I was talking to Henry from Nine Hole Reviews, and I was like, "Tell me what you know about this, because this is very much in your wheelhouse." And we talk about stuff like that, and I mean, from what I understand, it is a fully licensed copy of the FNC. So I'm here for it. Like, that's cool. I want to get my AK-5 on. That's awesome. So
I'm going to get my Al Pacino in Heat cosplay going, and we're going to reenact that shootout scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? It might be
It's on the
controversial. Yeah, it's on the list. It might be controversial to say it, but the Al Pacino FNC, to me, has a much higher level of cool factor than the Blood Diamond Car 15. Hate me if you want. I don't care. All right, yep. So we'll hop back over to Dana real quick and get his opinion on the post retro craze as I've come to. Let's see if we can't get that nomenclature trending out there. Post retro. I'm going to take credit for that. But what do you think about the old guns getting a facelift?
So I mean, I don't deal with that a whole lot because I kind of focus in on my stuff. Templar is actually my part-time job, so I literally work 40 hours, 50 hours a week at the post office, and then touching ACR once in a while. Sometimes I get to shoot, but I do see it a lot online on a lot of the groups that I'm on, and honestly, it seems like that the post retro, I believe, is starting to come out, and it's starting to come out with fire. I see it a lot with some of the modernized, like this wouldn't even be in the same category, but those what were the rails that for the ARs that clipped onto the top rail, and then they were tubular all the way down. Not the PRI ones, but I can't even think of what they are. But they
Cast V's from Voltor.
Yeah, Cast V's. Yeah, those are like huge now. And back in the day, those things were like, hey, I could buy one right now, and nobody cares. But now they're exploding. So I'm seeing it on that. But now I'm like seeing a lot of like carry handle AR stuff coming out, and I'm like, whoa, hey, that's kind of interesting. And then what was it? Noveski just dropped like a full carry handle build. I think it was.
Really?
I might have been that. I'm thinking they did. I could be 100% wrong. Again, it's not my territory. I see so much coming in that it's just like I got my little brother now, and he's the one that I'll be like, hey man, what's going on with this? Like, what's the current trend with this stuff? Build me a rifle to the new trend, and he'll be like, hey, buy this, and I'm like, okay. I'm broke, but I'll buy a couple of those things. But yeah, like as far as I've seen though, like that stuff is blowing up, and it's coming out of left field. Like duct tape flashlights onto plastic handguards is cool again. So,
yeah. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for in a few years. There's going to be right now we have the retro craze, and now we're getting the post retro craze where we've got older guns getting facelifts. And then we're going to see the post retro phase where it's going to be like GWAT clones are going to be, all the rage. Where people are like, oh hey man, you got that Geisley M-Lock rail? I really need it to complete my clone build from 2017. It's like, what the hell, man? Come on.
Oh.
It's all
it's going to go either forward that way or it's going to go backwards to the muzzle loaders. I need a PEC 15 for my muzzle loader.
Get on.
I mean, remember when Silencer Co. did that? They did the integrally suppressed muzzle loader.
Yeah, that thing was actually pretty ahead of its time. I'm not gonna lie.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's 50 state legal. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I totally see it's going to go probably one of both ways, or perhaps both ways, and you're going to see some kind of a clone of my issue weapon when I was in the army, which makes me feel old.
Oh yeah, no, that's already a thing, dude. Like M16A2s being cloned. Really?
Yeah.
Early M4s? Like, why are you doing this? Stop.
You're hurting my
Making me
feelings,
feel old.
please.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
when I saw
You never feel
FN,
more old than when you turn on a classic hit station.
yeah,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
hear and
Alright,
you
Eve
and
for
Six
that.
is playing, and you're just like, no.
yeah, when you turn on the classic rock. I was actually having a conversation with a coworker of mine the other day. So I said I feel ancient when I turn on the classic rock station, expecting to hear Led Zeppelin or Fleetwood Mac, and I hear Nirvana and Linkin Park, and I'm just like, oh, why? Why am I old now?
I
Nirvana. Blink 182.
Blink.
Yeah. Yep.
Or what was it, 1985? The song that's actually
Pursuit.
older now than it was at the generation it was talking about.
Yeah. The equivalent they say for like when it came out would be 2004.
Yep.
Yeah.
Damn.
I was
Christ.
already in the army crying.
And now we're sad.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I think once we get done here, I'm going to go take some Metamucil and maybe a Citracal, and we'll call it. No, but well, yeah, we are actually coming up on an hour here, and unless you guys got anything you want to close out with, we might end up just calling it a night. I know at least one of you guys is on the Eastern Seaboard and probably ready to hit the hay. So, why don't we just go? We'll go over to Steve for some closeout comments. Tell us what it is. Just give us a quick rundown of what it is that you do, where people can find your work, and maybe if they're in a different financial situation than I am, they can actually afford it. Go ahead and let them know.
That's how I feel about Dana's ACRs.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I'm not. I own MadPig Customs. We modernize lever action rifles, Marlane's Henrys, and like the Rossi R95 series now. And we also make and sell our own parts for them as well. And one of the things we debuted at SHOTshow was a new lever. So those are currently in production, and I should have them available to sell soon. So, yeah, that's what we do. And MadPig Customs on Instagram and X, Twitter, Facebook, all that
I forgot
stuff.
to tag you. Yeah, you can see it down there scrolling on the bottom of the screen, madpigcustoms.com to go over and check them out.
That's
like
us.
he said, Instagram and the Twitter X. And
Yeah.
Dana, why don't you tell us about what it is that you do over there at Templar?
Well, right now, basically, I do a lot of modification of the ACR. I'll do like barrel conversions, or I'm developing the scythe pretty heavily. So that's kind of my big thing. I do barrel dimpling, and I can cut and thread barrels, all that jazz. But big thing that I've focused on right now is last time we talked, I was actually talking about those AK lowers. Actually, I have one here. And we were talking about 3D printing them, and I got out of that, and then I went into 5 revisions and multiple massive amount of delays later. But this is the final product. Got you can look inside and see. Probably can't see it very well, but there's an actual hardened steel insert inside that'll you can change it out, so you can run the Gen 3 PMags, the one with the seal inserts, and then you can also run, if you wanted to, change it over, and you can run a 5.56. I was running the Circle 10 mags, the 5.56 ones, and I got a video of me shooting that in auto. And it was a really cool setup, but that was the final design. After that interview and all those delays, I finally got something that was really well put together, and something I actually could put my name on, because 3D printed thing, when you don't have any production whatsoever, and you're actually relying on other companies to do your stuff for you. And keep in mind, the money thing is huge. It's cool because the 3D printed one, that's just like a final generation prototype. When it's all said and done, you can get some actual production stuff out of it, and a lot of the stuff I've dealt with has been production. But in that case, that would have been like a final gen prototype, and I just didn't feel comfortable putting my name behind it. So, I ended up CNCing this monster, and honestly, it runs great. But that's where I was at then. Now I'm actually working on the barrel conversions and bolt heads, all that stuff. All the steel components for the rifle. That's my big thing right now. So hopefully within the next few months, you'll be seeing conversions dropping. Rough estimates right now are 4 to 6 weeks. But if, the programming on it doesn't go according to plan, which probably won't, I'm going to spend a lot of money on end mills. You're going to be, looking at a little bit of a delay on it, but it's my number one priority. I'm running the last of the Gen 1 handguards and then the Gen 3 handguards. There's no Gen 2 because I'm dumb. And I can't count because I'm in the Army. Or was. But anyway, once I get done with the Gen 3 handguards, I'm going to go straight into barrel assemblies, and I'm pretty much going to stick there until I'm done. This one behind me is tooled up right now. It's getting the final test runs done for the parts that are in it, and hopefully you'll see pictures of that coming out Saturday, Sunday, more likely Sunday, Monday at this rate. But again, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. It's generally a one-man show. I'm trying to get people in. My little brother's been helping out a lot lately. And then he's got a group of people he works with who are helping out as well. But they're 2 hours away, so they're not like here all the time. But yeah, I kind of did a little runoff on that. But so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I try to get back to messages as fast as I humanly can. It's just one guy doing literally everything is kind of difficult sometimes.
So I can imagine. All right, everybody. You heard it from you guys heard it from them. That was Steve at MadPig and Dana from Templar Precision. If you guys are interested in any of the things that they do, and you should be because they're just fucking cool, go on over to their websites, check their stuff out, send them some love, send them some money, give them some business, because they are doing the cool and innovative things that a lot of the bigger companies are not doing. And I think that that deserves to be appreciated. And if you got some shekels left over from patronizing their businesses, you can head on over to roads2liberty.com, pick up a t-shirt or a mug or a baby onesie or any of the other stuff that we have over there. Every little bit helps so that we can continue to bring cool stuff like this to you guys' computer screens. For me, Steve, Dana, and Ben in the background, y'all have a wonderful evening and join